396-354.
All right, Joseph, you heard the introductions of Mr. Kelsey along with Mr. Marabella and Mr. Jones. Will be your panel. Explain the process to you. We'll read some information to the record, have a parole interview, ask you some questions. You can respond. At the end, you can make a statement. We'll take a vote. You understand the process?
Yes, sir.
Joseph Green, DOC number 396-354, your first class offender.
Yes, sir.
Parole eligibility date 1/9/2020. Second degree murder. It's a life sentence. And does that sound correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You answer Mr. Marabella's questions, please.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Green. My name is Tony Marabella. I'm going to be asking you a few questions today. Mr. Green, how old are you, sir?
So I'm 41,
And you've been in prison for how long now?
approximately 26 years.
And you were 15, as I understand it, when this crime was committed?
Yes, sir.
I don't need you to go into great detail, but I'd like you to tell me just a little bit about what you remember happened that night. It was you and 8 other guys. Am I correct about that?
I have knowledge of the crime.
Okay.
And I was young. I didn't have the opportunity to really, I couldn't see how to go about disseminating information to the appropriate people, because the people who I was living with at the time, they weren't really the type of adults that you would really want to go to, and I didn't see any better. I knew about it before it happened. I knew about it after it happened. That makes me just as guilty as the people who committed it. I regret that, but I wish I knew then what I knew now, that I could have made the right decision to prevent it.
Let's talk about the things that you've done since then. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your education. You got your GED?
Yes, sir.
When did you get your GED?
2008.
Okay.
2008.
I understand that you're also an educational tutor. Is that correct?
I was a former educational clerk, tutor. Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about that and how you got into that.
After I got my GED, I didn't want to stop on the academics. I was prepared by or motivated by my father, who didn't have education, and he wanted his children before he passed away to get the education. So regardless of the circumstances of where I was at, I felt the need to get my education. So when I got my GED, I went to vocational school, got vocational trade. I came back to the education department and as an educational clerk, tutoring, working with the guys, helping them get their GEDs. When I finished that, I went to being a nurse's aide, working with people, picking up people skills. I facilitated faith-based programs. I got a degree in theology. Parenting skills. I got certificates in that. I've got substance abuse 1 and 2, anger management.
Let's talk a little bit about substance abuse. When you were 15, back when you were out of prison, did you use drugs or
yes, sir.
drink alcohol?
I experimented with alcohol and marijuana. Prior to coming to prison. I did.
Okay. So tell me about the programs that you've done. I know you've done reentry, living in balance, victim awareness, and parenting skills. Tell me what you believe are the programs that have helped you the most.
All of them. The majority of them helped me work with people. Being locked up at such a young age, I really didn't have people skills then. I enjoyed working with people and helping people learn. And in the process of doing it, even though I didn't realize it later on, I was picking up a way to communicate. It was helping me communicate with people, understand people, become social. All of it worked hand in hand because it's all this one big package. It's just not one thing. It's all of it. Because the majority of my degrees and majority of my diplomas, it comes from being adamant. Once I got my education, I felt like it was necessary that I give back, that I help guys who I seen struggling, trying to read, trying to do things that they needed to do, that would needed some kind of academical background to help them understand what they were doing. I had some of the tools. I tried to do whatever I could do to help them, and I helped a few. So
I understand that you're also been doing some work in carpentry. Tell me what you learned in terms of skills to work on the outside.
I know how to build a house out of wood. I know how to.
That's a skill
cut.
I do not have.
I know how to. At first, when I first started, it came together, but I got a knack for it. I'm good with my hands. I
Tell
wish
me
I
a
could.
little bit. Tell me a little bit. I understand that you are going to be. I see Mr. Hunley here. I understand you're going to be going with at least for a period of time with the Louisiana Parole Project.
Yes, sir. It's the best direction.
Tell me what your transition plan is, and I understand that. Tell me a little bit about what your transition plan is.
I'm aware I've been locked since I was a child. It'd be like trying to walk again. It would be foolish trying to get out and do it on my own. I'm going with the parole project, and whatever direction they shoot me in, that's the direction I'm gonna go in. And whenever they're giving me everything that I need, I have Mr. Trent Costa and Ms. Herrera who's gonna line me up with, a job, line me up with housing, to make sure I'm plugged in the right way so I can be productive, so I can be active and functional instead of being, opposite of that. That's the
Now,
best.
you've discussed a little bit your work with the faith-based community, and I note that you have a letter in your file from Bishop Sharif from New Orleans. Tell me a little bit about your work with the faith-based community in prison and what you hope to do when you get out.
I hope to take what I got in theology, and since I've been here, I got my faith-based certificates, my faith-based education, and then once I learned what I needed to learn, I facilitated. I found out that when you're teaching, you learn more. After you learn the basics of it, when you're teaching, you learn more. So what I plan to do is to get enrolled in some form of spiritual foundation. Maybe I understand that that's in this world right now. That's a big thing. That's what you need. That's a sense of balance. What I want to do is, if I can, work with people. I want to keep that going. I don't want to stop that. I want to work with people and give them that from a sense of spirituality, and kind of mix it in. Everything that I learned along the way, I want to just fashion it in one tool and give it. It's just not one dimensional. Then take everything that I know and mold it into one ball and use it to do what I need to do with.
Good. Now, you've had 42 write-ups in 26 years. Your last one was in 2018. What was that about?
I was going to work with my hat on. I forgot to take it off for identification purposes and standard procedure. I wasn't conscious that I had it on. I think it might have been kind of moist that morning, but I walked through the gate with the hat on. I forgot to take it off.
Good.
And once I exited the gate, it was too late to take it off then. But I took it off, but I got disobedience write-up for that.
I know you've been in prison since you were 15 years old. When you get out, the world has changed a lot, some for the good, some for the bad. Life's going to be tough out there. What are you going to do, or what are your plans to make sure that you don't go back to smoking marijuana or drinking or doing any kind of drugs that might get you in trouble?
I haven't had an urge to drink or smoke marijuana in 20-something years. I don't, that would be a major setback to go this long without doing something and get out and especially knowing the end results of it, that would send me, if not back to prison, probably worse. I don't have any intentions on doing that. I just want to go forward. You know?
In the event you were granted parole, it's likely you would be required to go to AA meetings or NA meetings or something like that. Is that something that you believe from your experience in prison would be helpful for you?
I wouldn't, if I don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol. If I were to go, it would be for like the social environment to where I can assist, maybe help, maybe I can even help in that division. Having experienced it at a young age, knowing what it'll take to wean yourself away from it. The biggest drug problem I've had is cigarettes. And I know how it is when you have an addiction problem. It took so long for me to wean myself off of cigarettes, so I can use that. If I were to go to AA, substance abuse, I can use that and what I learned here to probably help people, you know, with any problem, because I understand alcohol and drugs and cigarettes is, you know, it's still a drug too. So
Well, helping people certainly is part of the AA and the 12-step program, but it also is something that you likely will need at least to make sure you stay completely away from drugs and alcohol.
yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I think those are all the questions I have. Thank you, Mr. Green, for your comments.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Yes, Mr. Green, good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning. How you doing, ladies and gentlemen on the board?
Good.
Yes, sir.
Look, you spoke about, talked about when you was, prior to coming to jail, you was staying with some people that you didn't think you could really, who were you staying with? Who were the people you were living with?
I was living with an aunt. She was up in age. A first cousin, three first cousins, a brother, and occasionally, every now and then, another relative might come and stay and then leave, come and stay and leave. It fluctuated, but the main people who lived in the house were three first cousins, two brothers, and my aunt. My aunt was elderly, up in age. She was sick. She had already suffered 2 strokes, and basically she couldn't. Basically, my older relatives, brothers and cousins, they basically maintained the maintenance of the house, whatever.
You mentioned your father. Now, why wasn't you living with your mother and father?
My father passed away when I was roughly 13. My mother, she had an alcohol problem. She couldn't.
Okay. So
She
that's the
couldn't.
reason. That's the reason you went to live with your aunt.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what grade did you complete in school?
Prior to coming to prison, I completed the 8th grade. Around the time of my incarceration, I was in the 9th grade. I was incarcerated. While I was incarcerated, I was in the 9th grade. I just started, I think, maybe 6 months in the 9th grade.
And when did your drug use start? At what age?
When my father passed away, and my mother, she would disappear for like maybe a week or 2 at a time. My uncle would come by, and the drugs and alcohols, and I started around that time after my pops passed. When he passed away,
Brother, you have any brothers and sisters?
I have lots of brothers and sisters, about 9 brothers, 5 sisters, give or take. I just lost a brother to COVID. Last year, I just lost a brother to COVID. So,
were they living with you at the time your father passed? Were you all together?
No, it was just me, my mother. Before my father passed, I had a complete household. It was my mother, my father, my brother, and my sister. And even then, my father, he had an alcohol problem too. My mother, she still had alcohol. But when my father passed away, it got worse. I wasn't drinking then. And I'm ashamed to say this, but my first drop of alcohol came from my mother.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Right, thank you. Now we'll hear from Andrew Hunley.
Andrew Hunley, Executive Director of Louisiana Parole Project. Today we come before the board not representing Joseph Green for who he was when he was 15 years old, but we represent the Joseph Green you see before you today, who has been incarcerated for 26 years. As this board's aware, Louisiana Parole Project provides reentry support for individuals who've served long prison sentences. Almost half of our clients have been individuals who went to prison with life sentences. So we have a program that's developed to help individuals like Mr. Green reintegrate into society successfully. As this board's aware, we have a very successful track record. First, the reentry plan, if Joseph is released, would have him not going back to Rapides Parish or anywhere in that area. He would start his reentry in the Baton Rouge area in our residential program. To be frank, we foresee Joseph as a long-term client in our program because he does not have a big family support network. Parole Project and the Trinacostas will serve as that support system for him. We have employment lined up for him in the Baton Rouge area. As you know, our program also consists of helping clients transition with teaching them technological skills, life skills, financial management skills. We'll ensure that he has all those wraparound services. He will also receive a mental health evaluation if he is released to our program, which will also include a substance abuse evaluation. And this board should know with every client, with those that y'all give specific stipulations to and those you don't, we will ensure that they follow up with all those guidelines and any special conditions this board should see. In conclusion, we would like to just point out that the Miller and Montgomery decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court give us guidance to show us or ask us to look at who individuals who were sentenced to prison as juveniles, who they have become. And Parole Project has accepted Joseph Green as a client because we feel like he has grown, matured, and changed his life, and he can be a successful individual in society. And our organization stands by to support him on that transition if given the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll hear from the Trinacostas. They'd like to make a statement. Ms. Hogan.
Thank you. I'm Susana Herrero. I'm speaking on behalf of Nick Trinacosta and myself. Nick and I are here for two very different reasons. First, we're lawyers. We have between us 60 years of practice, and we did a lot of post-conviction work on Joseph's case. So if the board has questions about our post-conviction investigation, we're here to answer those questions. More importantly, we're here as husband and wife, ready to mentor and support Joseph if he's granted parole. We have a plan to accept him into our home once he completes the parole project in Baton Rouge, help him find a job, housing, further education, and also to support any recommendations that the board makes. I'm aware of Joseph's family. I've interviewed all the people that we've been talking about in the course of my post-conviction investigation, and I'm aware of the substance abuse in his family. If he were sent to any kind of AA meetings or counseling or NA meetings, we would support that and make sure that he attended those meetings. After meeting Joseph in a legal case, I realized that this young man has internalized a very beautiful moral code. He has a beautiful value system. He's not the typical convicted offender that I meet when I visit Angola. He's kind, he's honest, he's genuine, he's remorseful for his role in Ms. Rabalay's murder. He's what I consider a really decent human being. And this is the only time in our 20 years of marriage that Nick and I have made a commitment to take someone into our home and support them and mentor them and help them on their way. We have a church community that we're very active in, and I know that the church submitted a letter welcoming Joseph. We have plans to put him in our RCIA Bible study and have him baptized in our church and have him become an active member in our church. It's a welcoming parish. It's an African-American parish in the Tremaine neighborhood. And I think that Joseph would really feel at home there. I think he would be welcomed, embraced, and put to work, put to good work. Mm-hmm. He wants to be helpful. There's a lot of opportunities for community service in our community and also in our church.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now we'll hear from Mr. Yarbrough.
I'm going to yield my time at first to let someone else speak, and I'll follow up with the remaining time.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm Melissa Phillips. My name is not important. The name I'd like for you to remember today is Rita Rabalay. Rita was 82 years old. She was 1 week shy of celebrating her 83rd birthday. She was 5 feet tall and weighed 120 pounds. She was the victim of a brutal, sadistic, and inhumanely murder that Joseph Green participated in. Joseph Green was a juvenile when he murdered my aunt. He was sentenced to life without parole. In 2012, Miller and Montgomery cases, the United States Supreme Court ruled that juveniles couldn't be sentenced to life without a chance of parole. My district attorney's office took it upon themselves to re-sentence all juveniles in our parish at one time, except for 3 that were represented by an attorney. This was even after we begged the DA's office not to do that and to ask for a Miller hearing for the 3 juveniles in our case. That's why we're here today, is because we were victimized after reading in a newspaper that this was done, and nobody told us. I'm Rita's great niece. My life took an unexpected turn on October 24th, 1994. I went from being 19 years old to feeling like I was a 5-year-old again. My dad had to sit in a chair in my room for me to be able to go to sleep that night. I became afraid of the dark again. I would stay awake all night long and sleep during the day. I feared the same thing could happen to me. I was robbed of my sense of security. I rarely left the house. I feared I would run into one of these murders. I could not stay at home by myself, and this caused problems in my marriage and led to a divorce. My ex-husband couldn't understand my fear. I feared hearing the name Rita Rabalay because it made me think of what happened to her instead of who she was. The horrific thoughts of how she was murdered and what she must have gone through would fill my head when I heard her name. I would try to change my thoughts to try to remember the old Aunt Rita, but I couldn't get past the murdered Aunt Rita. Therefore, I had to shift my thoughts to a different subject altogether. I avoided conversations about her, did everything in my power to not have to deal with her because I couldn't get past the fear. I didn't get to grieve because of the fear. I named my youngest daughter Rita in memory of her. She told me that she wouldn't allow her nieces or nephews to call her Rita. I was saddened to understand that this was because she shared the same fear I did. 4 generations of my family have been affected. Aunt Rita was my maternal grandfather's sister. Their siblings, my mother and father, my siblings and I, and now my children. We have to be her voice because her voice was taken from her. The effects of murders don't go away after time. We're victimized again when attending court hearings or parole hearings. My body is numb for days. The memories of that morning flood my brain. The images of her house linger. The images of scissors scattered all over the floor. And I have nightmares about what I thought happened to her. We, the family, were given very few details about the murder. The crime was first thought to be an armed robbery, only later did we find out it was part of a gang initiation. Because I gave a victim's impact statement, I was not allowed to sit in court during the trials. I learned details of the murder through reading transcripts of the trial, through autopsy reports, and through newspaper articles after the crime. An autopsy revealed that Aunt Rita had been stabbed multiple times and badly beaten. Her face and head were severely bruised and lacerated, and repeated blows to the head caused massive bleeding to the brain. In addition, she suffered 3 other potentially fatal knife wounds, one on each side of the neck, severing both the carotid artery and the primary vein, and a stab to the left side, which had penetrated 6 inches and lacerated the heart and 1 lung. There was evidence of blunt trauma as well as defensive wounds to her arms. It was verified that her wounds were consistent with the type of injuries which would have been inflicted upon the instruments recovered at the house. According to testimony, Aunt Rita was grabbed by her hair, slammed to the ground. The 9 offenders took turns kicking her with their feet and beating her with their fists. She was choked with a wire. She had been beaten with the weed eater that broke it and the shaft was used. It broke because of the force. She was stabbed multiple times with her own knives from the butcher block in her kitchen. One offender told Joseph Green, "He better get some more of this." Once the offenders finished murdering Aunt Rita, they shoved her body in a closet and pushed her Cheshire drawers in front of it, just in case she might get out. Aunt Rita didn't choose to die this way. She will not be paroled from death, and she will not get a second chance at life. Joseph Green made a decision to participate in taking her life, and I'm here today to oppose his petition for parole. Anyone who could murder a person the way that she was murdered and go on with their everyday activities as if nothing happened has no regard for life. I'm positive that Mr. Green will claim to be a changed man since being incarcerated. He's probably even found God. I doubt that he's been rehabilitated. I strongly feel that he will reoffend again. I ask you to please think of the victims before you make a decision. Please remember the 4 generations of my family who were affected by this murder. Remember Rita Rabelais and what she went through on the morning of October 24th, 1994. And I beg of you to prevent other families from having to go through this pain and suffering. But I ask of you, would you want this person living next to you, your family members? Would you want your loved ones to suffer a horrendous death like she did? And one more thing, who was there to help Aunt Rita? Thank you for your time.
Right,
Yield to
thank you.
remain Heather Johnson.
My name is Heather Johnson, and I am one of the voices today for my great aunt, Rita Rabelais. October 24th, 1994 changed my life forever, and not in good ways. I, along with my sister, rushed to Aunt Rita's house with our small babies that morning after being told something was wrong when Aunt Rita did not attend morning mass as her daily routine. We stood on the edge of the street in front of her house with our babies on our hips, waiting for police to arrive to help with determining what happened to our aunt. I have such a sick feeling in my gut to this day when I think about my baby being so close to such a horrific scene, and the thought of what if they were watching us that morning. The way that Aunt Rita was savagely murdered shook my faith to its core, as I was a firm believer growing up that if you live a good Christian life, then nothing bad could happen to you. It took many years to deal with that shaken faith, and still today, after 26 years of fighting for justice, I still struggle with faith of good winning over evil. I am struck with such fear, but yet anger at the same time when I remember what was done to Aunt Rita. This tiny, fragile, 5 foot tall, 120-pound elderly woman was taken by fear, I am sure, that morning when these attackers stormed her house and surrounded her. Aunt Rita was repeatedly, brutally, and inhumanely beat in the face, head, and body. She was punched and kicked and beat with metal rods. Her tiny body was repeatedly slashed and stabbed so violently. She was choked with blood. I am hurt to the core of my being thinking about the painful acts she endured. My heart aches feeling what must have been a horrible sense of fear and agony and hopelessness she had to endure during this animalistic attack. Then knowing that she was shoved into a dark closet and left to bleed out and die alone is just simply unimaginable. The entire crime left me with such fear for my safety and the safety of my children and family. I fear for my safety as well as the safety of my children and family if Joseph Green is released. I beg of you to consider all that Aunt Rita endured at the hands of Joseph Green and the others. I would hope that you keep Joseph Green behind bars where he cannot hurt anyone else. I beg of you to consider what his actions took from us, most of all our beloved Aunt Rita Rabelais, as well as our sense of safety and security. I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you and hope that you will decide to deny parole for Joseph Green.
All right, thank you.
I'm James Yarbrough. Rita Rabelais was my great aunt. They told you about Rita Rabelais, and everything they said I feel too. But Joseph Green participated in that murder that morning. He had the choice not to, but he did. He had the choice afterwards to go to the police if he didn't have the family to tell someone about it, but he didn't. Detectives had to work night and day to figure out and get a lead. What they did to my aunt, I can't forget. When I found her, and she was unrecognizable, bloody, purple, cuts everywhere, shoved in a closet, left to die. Then they hid her dog, her only companion, away from her. People, you want this person living in your home? Take a look at your wife, because she might not look like that 3 or 4 days, 3 or 4 months after you put them in your home. We are who we are. We can change our ways, but things are in our blood, people say. People don't change that kind of activity. Once you have that in you, it's in you. Like people come from war, a soldier is a soldier. He has that in him. Cops who were cops, they live with those things they see. I live with this that I see. How many times have you woke up at night, Joseph, thinking of that image that you left my aunt with? How many times has it bothered you? It's great you have all these certificates that I paid for you to get while you were in prison. Because there's homeless people out here who are working hard, who tried to do everything, and they don't get the chances that you get.
Mr. Yarbrough, speak to the board, Mr. Yarbrough. Speak to the board.
I'm asking the board to realize these things that this guy took part in, that murdered my aunt. She's not coming back. She don't get, like they said, a chance of parole. She bring her back, and we'll be happy to let y'all decide to let him go. But it's not going to happen. She is not coming back. And when you put murderers on the street, look what's happening in society today. It's y'all's opportunity to stop what's going on with society. Crime is increasing. Why? Because we have this justice reform. When you're convicted of second-degree murder, it was because they bargained away from first-degree murder, which gave you this right. You were convicted to life, and that's what we expected. That's what we felt safe with, because the first degree was not taken. They decided second degree, and it was a guilty verdict. We don't feel safe knowing that he will be released. We have to look over our shoulder in a store, wonder, maybe he's got a little bit of vengeance for us because we were the ones who found him. Use all the certificates and everything you go through is great, but have you admitted to your part of taking in the murder? Have you seek counseling to help you with what you have done? Because if you haven't had any counseling for it, then it doesn't affect you. It's nothing to you, and you'll do it again. I asked the board that you please look at the victims part, because my aunt, she's not here anymore. That's the beautiful being. That was woman went to church every morning, prayed to and did work. She let probably opened the door for the kids in the neighborhood because one of them used to cut the grass. She trusted them. To her own demise, she trusted those guys, and they killed her. They beat her. They passed her around, punched her, stabbed her, kicked her until she was unrecognizable. Let me tell you, the board, I hope that you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night seeing that image in your mind. I hope that you don't ever have to open the door to a closet and find one of your loved ones there, covered in blood and unrecognizable from the lacerations, from the bruising, the swelling.
Yes, sir.
I'm 47 now. This was when I was 20 years ago. I could have went down another path too. It's what's in you. It's how you're brought up and what you choose to do with your life. The choices you make, you have to pay for.
Yes,
Please
sir.
put this person back in society. We
Yes,
have
sir.
enough of them out there who need to join.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your comments. Now we'll hear from DA Thompson.
You want me?
You're on mute. Okay.
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead.
You got me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm Debbie Thompson. I'm the executive administrator for the Office of the District Attorney in Rapides Parish. Also, I'm a 35-year-old corrections retired warden. The accomplishments that Mr. Green has had in prison is a product of his life in prison. However, that does not detract, and it cannot. The severity of the crime that he committed struck horror through the entire parish of Rapides. Anytime that you mention Rita Rabelais, everyone here in this parish, and especially in Alexandria, knows about the brutal murder that Joseph Green participated in. The district attorney's office totally opposes any consideration whatsoever for Mr. Green. Thank you, sir.
And thank you. Now we'll hear from the warden. Do we have any comments there at the facility?
This is Deputy Warden Fowler. No, I really don't have anything to add. You guys have gone through all of his history as far as his education, disciplinary. He is a medium custody offender, housed in the dormitory. He's working as a groundskeeper currently. He does have 42 write-ups. None of them are really any problems, any big write-ups. So that's all I have to add.
All right, thank you. All right, Mr. Green, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Yes, sir. The Ms. Yarbrough and if you don't mind, can I address?
No, you need to address the board. Address the board. Address the board directly.
They have every right to feel the way they feel. I abandoned the obligation of being moral, of having knowledge about something prior to it happening, and didn't do it. If I would have known now, knowing then when I know now, I would have told someone what someone was saying that they was planning to do. And after it happened, I had knowledge of it. But prior to it happening, I didn't have enough insight to really, I didn't have the right tools, mental tools to know who to tell and what to tell to, because originally I'm not from Alexandria, right? So everything was new to me. I understand. I do understand. They, like I said, they have every right to feel the way that they feel. There's nothing I have to say to erase the pain. I wish it were, but it's not. I regret being a 15-year-old child at the time who didn't know what direction to go when his first cousin or the person closest to him saying that they was planning to do something to someone. And I didn't put much stock in it because it was just talk to me. It was until after I found out that it had happened, I'm like, okay, somebody really did it. And when I found out who did it, it made me clam up even more so because, like I said, I didn't know anyone. I was young. I didn't have any direction on who to report anything to. I was dumbfounded. I was a 15-year-old child. I grew up in the country. My father passed away. I was living around relatives who was strung out. My auntie had 2 strokes. I regret it. I can't go back and change the past. And God knows I wish I could. Because if I would have said something prior to it happening, I could have prevented it. But I didn't know who to say anything to. No, I'm sorry that I didn't open my mouth sooner. Because if I would have said something, I could have prevented it from happening. And I didn't believe the people who were telling me what they were going to do. I didn't believe them. I just thought it was all talk. Until after it happened. And when it happened, I just clammed up. You can't tell the people who are giving me alcohol and giving me marijuana that the people who are closest to them did this. And I didn't know what it would do. I didn't want to be shown. I didn't know. Yes, I regret. I'm morally anguished for it. I should have said something. I should have told someone. I should have told someone who was a respectable adult at the time. I should have said something. And I apologize that I didn't. I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do to erase what had happened. I received threats, prior, but it's all that's irrelevant. I negated. I abandoned a moral obligation. I should have said something. I didn't do it, and that makes me equally guilty because I'm aware that if I would have said something, I could have prevented it. I didn't say anything.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hogan, would you like to wrap it up?
Yes, sir, Mr. Kelsey. Thank you very much. Joseph Green was 15 years old when he was arrested and charged with this along with 8 other individuals. Of all those 9 people, he was the youngest. The district attorney's office had the opportunity to affirm Mr. Green's life without parole sentence, and it elected not to. It resentenced him to parole eligibility in 2020. And that's why we're here today for a hearing pursuant to Miller, Montgomery, and Act 277, in which the relevant inquiry is not what occurred 26 years ago, but whether over the past 26 years, Joseph Green has shown himself to be worthy of a meaningful opportunity for release based on demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation. His rehabilitation is clear. Even serving a life sentence, he pursued his education, getting GEDs in carpentry trades in 2008, throwing himself into all manners of religious studies, working in jobs that helped other people, such as hospital orderly, tutoring others, working as a tier walker. He has a low risk assessment indicating his likelihood of recidivism is extremely low. And were he to be released, he would never return to the Rapides Parish area. He really has no family to speak of. He is the surrogate family of Nick and Susanna, who are here in support of him today. So we ask this board look at the demonstrated maturity and rehabilitation over the past 26 years and consider who Joseph Green is today, and to grant him parole with any conditions deemed appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Is a panel prepared to vote?
Yes, sir.
For Mayor Bell?
You know, it's been a privilege for me to serve on this board. But it's very difficult, these decisions we have to make. We hear stories of horrible crimes such as this. I can't imagine what the family of Ms. Rabelais has gone through. And I will say and I've said this before in hearings like this, if my vote to keep him in prison would bring Ms. Rabelais back, I would do it in a second. But of course, I don't have that power. The criminal justice system has different roles for different people. I've been in the criminal justice system for 47 years. I was a prosecutor, I was a defense lawyer, I was a judge, and now I sit on the parole board. All of those positions have different roles. I understand Mr. Thompson's position as a prosecutor. I would be there espousing the very same thing. I understand Ms. Hogan's position. She's the defense lawyer. But my job now and my role now as a member of the Pardon and Parole Board is to determine who this inmate is today, what he has done since he's committed this horrible crime. And that's the role I have to play. And while there is no question in my heart that I can't imagine what Mr. Yarborough and his relatives have gone through all of these years, as painful as that is, my decision needs to be made on my role, on what I believe is the right thing to do in my position. Having said all of those things, the good record, the good programs that I have seen from Mr. Green, the 26 years he has been in prison, the fact that he has a low risk assessment, he has got an education, he has worked very hard, he has got a good plan for his exit when he leaves. My vote today is to grant his parole with the following special conditions. Number one, that he be referred to the Louisiana Parole Project. And I know that they do substance abuse and mental health, but I'm going to make it a condition that he get his substance abuse evaluation, follow whatever recommendations, as well as a mental health evaluation. I would also want him to do 2 AA meetings, regardless of their evaluation, 2 AA meetings per week for at least the first 6 months. If the substance abuse evaluator, in coordination with the parole supervisor, determines he doesn't need to go to that many meetings or needs more, then that will be adjusted. I want him to go weekly for the first 60 days to meet with his parole supervisor. I want him to perform 6 hours of community service work, primarily with at-risk youth. And I also want clearly a stipulation that he stay away from the victim's family. Alexandria, I'm going to prohibit him from going to Alexandria without permission of his parole supervisor. Mr. Chairman, that would be my vote.
Mr. Jones?
Mr. Green? Mr. Marabella has explained thoroughly our roles on this board and different roles that we play. He's done a great job of doing that. I want to commend you for what you've done since you've been incarcerated. I want to commend you for that. But I'm just not in a position today to go along with granting you parole today. My vote today would be to deny your parole.
Yes, sir.
All right, you have 1 vote to grant your parole, 1 vote to deny your parole. Well spoken, Mr. Marabella. Absolutely said it correct. These are tough decisions. These are difficult decisions for us every time we get up here. No matter how what we hear, it's always tough on one side or the other. For me today, again, you're right. You've done a lot of great things. You have done a lot of great work and done a lot of great things. Personally, for being down this long, in my concern, whether it be a big deal or not, seeing back in 18, you getting a few disciplines. I mean, those are kind of a problem for me. But I'd like to see you improve your trustee status. Those are things that you can do that would be better for me. So, for me, not showing that doesn't show a level of maturity for me. So today I'm going to vote to deny you parole. Again, I'd like to see you increase your trustee status. I'd like you to stay right up free. And if you come up in the next time in front of me, maybe the vote will be more favorable. But that's my vote for today. So we have 1 vote to grant and 2 deny. Your parole's been denied. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And we do have a lot of information to go over. There are court transcripts and there are news articles, and I'll figure out, we might just go over the main kind of transcript here because there's so much, because there were 9 convictions in this case. It was, they really didn't get into the details, but it was it was a group of 9 people, mostly, under the age of 18, and it was like a gang initiation thing, and it was brutal. It was horrific. There's a reason why there's so much outrage over this, and I think part of the tragedy of this is that out of the 9, the family has to continuously get up and try to put a stop to all of these juveniles that keep getting chances of release and have all these organizations and groups and people fighting for the release. And it's like just a big part of, like, we saw the nephew talking about it, and it's just an insult to injury when you have the 2 people there and the woman's like, yeah, he can move in with us. And it was great when he said in his speech, and you could hear he was raging, he was upset. He's like, I wonder what she will look like after he lives with you for 3 or 4 days. And man, wow, that didn't bring it home. That was a little intense, but it is just exhausting when we listen to these hearings, and then you hear how the support comes up and is all like jolly about everything, and then it's followed by the victims coming to speak. But for me, what stood out the most in this was, did he know more about what was his involvement? If he's 15 and he heard about it through the grapevine, or heard about it, or they said, hey, we're going to go do this, but he wasn't involved in it in any way, and then he didn't tell the police. Frankly, that I don't believe you should get a life sentence for that. You're 15. Like, what do you? So what I want to find out by reading this, because I haven't read it yet, is what was his involvement? Was he there? Did he participate? And if he was, how come they didn't call him out on that at this hearing? He kept on saying, I should have said something. I didn't. I should have said something. And that was like his go-to line. And but he was convicted of 2nd-degree manslaughter and given a life sentence. So let's see if we can clarify this. Thank you, Richard, for the info, as always. And buckle up. This is pretty intense. So it goes through the list of the killers, right? 17, 17, 16, 15. And they don't even list their ages here. I wonder why. But October 24th, 1994, home invasion, robbery, and murder. Weapons. You read this, it's like, what? Pipe, knives, wire, and person. Beaten and stabbing. Robbery, gang initiation, and witness elimination. Joseph and Ellie guilty pleaded manslaughter. Green and McCullough second-degree murder. Right? He got a more intense sentence than others convicted. So, and then you got Grady and Howard a first degree. So there was even a younger. Ellie was so Ellie got 13 years. McCullough life without. Howard got the ultimate punishment, but later it was reduced to life with opportunity for parole, and that's because he was under the age of 18. If you can imagine, this family had to deal with all of this over and over and over again. So during a gang initiation, a group of assailants, 4 of them juveniles, invaded Rita's home to rob her and then murdered her. Rita, who was targeted because she was believed to have a lot of money, was surrounded, grabbed by the hair, and slammed to the ground. The attackers kicked her, beat her, hit her in the head with a pipe, and stabbed her with knives from her own kitchen. It's like, how can someone bring themselves to do this? And then, at no matter what age. The attackers kicked her, hit her with the stab with the knives kitchen. Howard also choked the 82-year-old woman with wire. The killers then ransacked Rita's home. The offenders were apprehended, with some being convicted at trial and some pleading guilty. According to Joseph, the killers planned to murder her if she recognized Howard, who lived in the neighborhood. One of the juvenile killers, Joseph Ellie, was released from prison, but has been charged with second-degree battery and aggravated arson. So he was released and he got picked up and he charged right away. That's great. Okay. Facts. I hope that this goes into what Joseph Green did. On the morning of October 24th, 1994, Letta became concerned with her 82-year-old sister-in-law, Rita, who did not attend the 8 a.m. daily mass as was her custom. Immediately after the service, Letta went to Rita's home to check on her. When she arrived, she found the door to Rita's home unlocked. She entered the house and called to Rita, but neither Rita nor her pet dog responded. Various items were in disarray around the home, and Lita became alarmed. She called her daughter, who shortly thereafter arrived with Lita's grandson, James. James found Rita's pet poodle closed up in one of the home's bedrooms, cowering by the side of a bed. By that time, various other family members had arrived and gone through the house looking for Rita to no avail. While searching about the house for his great aunt, James noticed that chest drawers had been pulled from its usual spot against the wall and placed in front of the closet in Rita's bedroom. The police were called to investigate. When the police arrived at the scene, James directed the officer James to Rita's bedroom and pointed to the chest blocking the closet door. The officer, look at this, both names. James directed Officer James. Okay, the officer moved the chest open and closed and directed his flashlight inside. The officer, Officer Betevi and James Yarbo found the bludgeoned body of Rita covered with blood in a slouched position on the floor of the closet. The Homicide Division of Alexandria Police Department soon arrived to collect evidence. Detective Griffith of Ronald Besson took photographs, dusted for fingerprints, and recovered from the kitchen garbage can, a knife sharpening rod, and a rubber glove bearing a latent palm print. They also found bloody shoe prints left on the floor of the home. The portion of the floor where the shoe print was found was removed by carpenters to be preserved as evidence. All of these items were introduced at trial. An autopsy of the victim revealed that Rita had been repeatedly stabbed, slashed, badly beaten. Her face and head bore evidence of multiple bruises and lacerations. There were 4 groups of fatal wounds. I mean, can you imagine living to this ripe old age only to have that kind of end? It's just unfathomable. Repeated blows to the head caused massive bleeding to the brain. In addition, there was 3 fatal stab wounds, one of each side of the neck, which had severed the carotid arteries. And maybe one quick, I don't know. The fear, just thinking about the fear, the terror, which had been penetrated with 6 inches and pierced her heart and lung. The coroner, Brenda Reams, also testified that the evidence of blunt trauma about the upper body, apparently inflicted with fists and a blunt object, as well as defensive wounds to the victim's arms. She verified that the victim's stab wounds were consistent with the wounds that could have been inflicted by the kitchen knife recovered at the scene. She also confirmed that the trauma to the victim's brain could have been caused by blows with the knife sharpening rod found by the officers. In the course of the investigation, police canvassed the neighborhood for more information. They spoke to Ricky Swafford, a 14-year-old boy living in the area. Ricky testified at trial that he had known Rita and that she appeared to him to be about 90 years old. A few days before the murder, he had heard defendant and several other young men planning to rob and kill Rita. As they hung out in the front yard of Lonnie Smith's house, Smith was Rita's next-door neighbor. He heard Grady say that they believed the victim had money, jewelry, and a gun, and that he wanted to go in to the old lady's house and kill her and see what he could find in the home. Ricky testified that he heard, it's just so ridiculous. Like, they could have waited till she went to church, as she always did, and then just done what they wanted. It's just so insane. And the excuse of, well, they were under 18, their brains weren't fully developed. That's just that's not an excuse. That's just not. Ricky testified that he heard virtually the same comments made by the defendant in another conversation the day before. On the morning of the murder, he saw the defendant in the neighborhood wearing a white T-shirt with red stains on it. Still looking for what Joseph's involvement was, right? That's what I'm really curious to know. I need to know, because the police went to the defendant's home and left a message asking that he call the detectives. He did so and reportedly volunteered, came to the police station for questioning. December 9, 1994, after being advised of his rights, the defendant gave a statement describing the murder of Rita in graphic detail. He confessed that he had entered the victim's home with at least 4 other young men with the intention of robbing her. He had discussed the crime with one of the other perpetrators in the morning, Cedric Howard, who had said, "Come on, let's go kill this old woman and take care of her and take her car." As he entered Rita's home, behind the other attackers, they had already begun to beat her, and she was calling out for help. She tried to run for the front door, but she was caught by her hair and slammed to the floor. Where she was kicked and beaten and hit in the head with a pipe. What causes anyone to do something like that? How there's something very broken in anyone who can be involved in something like that. At some point, Cedric Howard choked her with the wire. One of the perpetrators, Jerry Joseph, ran and got some knives. The defendant admitted that he stabbed the elderly victim. Okay. This is Joseph. He lied at his hearing, and no one called him out on it. Wait. Well, no, maybe no. Joseph is his first name, so Jerry Joseph. That's not accurate. Maybe not. Joseph Green is who we watched with. Jerry Joseph is someone else. Okay. So never mind. That's just another. Stabbed the elderly victim. Witness others continue cutting her all up. They rushed into the closet and moved to the dresser across the door. The defendant cleaned the knife and then used it to throw the hospital gloves worn during the murder the kitchen garbage can. Then the attackers looked through the victim's stuff and her dresser looking for her car keys. Defendant confirmed Ricky's testimony that he had seen him in the neighborhood during the murder. I'm going to go do a search on this document and look for Joseph Green. Okay, so it's right here. Okay, police also secured the statement of, no, that's Cedric Green. We need Joseph Green right here. Here it is, Joseph Green. Also, December 8th, 1994, detectives four others arrested and warrants issued. The arrest of Jerry Joseph General. Yeah, okay, no wonder this is so confusing. There's Jerry Joseph, Joseph General, and Joseph Green as 3 of the 9 defendants. I mean, how am I supposed to possibly keep track of this? Sorry if I'm unable to. The problem is it doesn't say his involvement. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I don't. Let's see. This is it right here. Some information. Joseph testified at defendant's trial that he had been present at the Eat a Bite Club when the defendant and Frederick Bradley were planning a break-in at the woman's house on Kelly Street. Joseph disclosed that Miss Rebalis had been targeted because she was supposed to have a lot of money. He further testified that later that night he met Gradley Joe, General Seed Howard, and Joseph's cousin on the corner of Chester Street. Also present were Mike Ellie, Bonnie Simmons, David McCullough, Fred Bush, and an individual who remained unidentified. While the others entered Miss Rebalis' house, Joseph testified that he remained on the porch of the house across the street, drinking a 40-ounce of beer. Shortly afterward, Joseph went inside and saw the victim surrounded by the others. They were beating, kicking, and stabbing the victim. So, okay, now we're getting information of his involvement. He knew about it. He seems involved in the planning of some sort. He stood outside the house, watched, then he went into the house and saw them doing it. At one point, and Miss Rebalis held onto Gradley. Defendant hit her over the head with a pipe. Joseph testified that he left the scene before the others stuffed her in a closet, but that he did observe General and some others wiping the walls and cleaning everywhere they had touched. Joseph further admitted that money was taken from the house and that he got $50. So that's his involvement, which is definitely more than he had let on. He was in the house. He saw it happening. It seems that it was less than the others, that he wasn't actually involved in hitting, kicking. He claims that he didn't clean anything, that he didn't move the body, but he was involved. But it is different. It's less than he admits to, but it's also not as much as I thought it would be. Okay, never mind. I continued. Richard found actual appeal documents for one of the defendants, and it's a different story. So, we'll read through this, and what we read here is just brutal. And he's very much involved in the beating and killing of her. So testimony from Rick Swafford corroborated Jerry Joseph's testimony. Swafford testified that he overheard a conversation that took place a few nights before the homicide in which Freddie, Grady, and Lonnie and Joseph Green and defendant discussed killing her. Swafford testified that the defendant was down with it, meaning that he was willing to do it. Swafford further testified that in the morning of the killing, he saw co-defendant Freddie in the alley approximately 2 houses down from Miss Rabelis' house, and that Grady had stains all over his t-shirt. Likewise, Jerry Joseph, which is not Joseph Green, Jerry Joseph reported a similar conversation took place at the bike club. In addition, Jerry Joseph testified consistently with the physical evidence found at the scene, as well as the testimony of others. For example, he testified that the defendant had a screwdriver and Lonnie had a cord, and that some of the other participants had brought rubber gloves to use after entering the house. Jerry Joseph described the events inside her house by stating, "When I went up to the house, I saw my homeboy, my boy Joe, General, hit the lady. She was hanging on Fred. And that's when I seen Ched, the defendant, hit her in the head with a pipe." He further testified after Mrs. Rabelis fell to the ground and David picked her up, Lonnie Simmons hit her in the face with his fist. And Joseph Green right here, this is it, it stated, kicked her in the face. Okay. Jerry Joseph indicated that the perpetrators had crowded around the victim in a circle. Lonnie Simmons had found some money, out of which Jerry Joseph was paid $50. At some point, David got cut with a knife. Freddie was wielding it. In response, he took the stick and started swinging various objects in the room. Finally, Jerry Joseph testified that he left the scene, that Joe General was wiping down the walls and anywhere they might have touched with a towel. The photograph depicting the victim's body, as well as the testimony of forensic pathologists, confirmed the victim suffered severe beating back then, as Jerry Joseph testified. Where's the... This is... Yeah, I mean, according to this, he was very much involved, so quite a different story. Well, he was denied, and, you know, here's an example I'll show you of what this family is dealing with. This is a news article that Richard found. And
first up,
something that they're dealing with all, you know, so much of their lives.
All right, well, first up tonight, the family of 82-year-old Rita Rabelais, who was murdered during a gang initiation in 1994 in Alexandria by a group of 9 people, will have to wait longer to see if one of the convicted killers could one day be eligible for parole.
A Miller hearing, which would determine if Davian McCullough can be considered a worst of the worst case, has been pushed until sometime next year. Rabelais' family has been pushing for the hearing ever since a Supreme Court decision required that juveniles sentenced to life in prison must have a meaningful chance at parole. That decision was retroactive.
Well, today in court, the family also learned that McCullough will now have access through the Indigent Defenders Board to financial assistance to hire experts for his case.
Tiring. We've been doing this for several years. To hear again the money that's going to be put forth by taxpayers to defend this convicted murderer, to try and release him early. We're tired. We're upset.
In a similar matter, 2 other convicted murderers were resentenced today by Judge Cook after the state agreed not to push for a Miller hearing.
Thea Johnson was serving life in prison without the possibility of parole for the 1999 beating and stabbing death of her mother, Linda Kyle, who you saw just a while ago. And Dwayne Young also has a life without parole sentence for the 1993 shooting death of Peter Raschel. Both have now been resentenced.
Well, something seems to have happened with my mic. I don't know, with my camera. I don't know if you can hear me. So it's time to end this. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Richard. And I don't know if you can hear me, but there you have it. That was his nephew, the one that told the other the ones in support. I wonder what she'll look like in 3 or 4 days if you invite her into the house. So there you have it. And with that, I'll let you go.